Hey everybody, my name is Kat Jones and I'm the editorial director here at The Pit. And I'm about to be joined by Chase Mason of Gatecreeper, and we're going to spend about an hour just shooting the shit about what he's been up to. Waiting for him to pop in. While we chat, you guys are welcome to submit questions. There's like a little question mark thing at the bottom. Hey,
Uh,
it worked.
yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. What's been keeping you busy during this like insane time that we're in right now?
Um, well, since our tour got canceled like the day before it started, we had all of our merch printed for basically the whole tour. So we put it up online and sold a lot of it. And since we're social distancing, it's just me sending out all this stuff. So it's kept me pretty busy. Sent out a couple hundred shirts, and
Damn.
packing that all up and everything is pretty time consuming, but it's nice to have something to do. So
Yeah, I
mostly
bet.
doing that.
So were the shirts like specifically branded for your tour, the Decibel tour?
Only one of them, was that had like the tour dates and stuff on the back. So there's only, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff was new that was just supposed to be for that tour, but there's only one that says Decibel Tour on it, or has the tour dates on it.
Well, I mean, on one hand, it really sucks that you have this shirt printed that is for a tour that never happened. But on the other hand, if people were disappointed that they couldn't go to those shows, now they can have a shirt that is like commemorating what like the good time that they would have had.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like a collector's item now.
Yeah, that's like in a weird way kind of rad. But that's really cool that your fans supported you and rushed to buy all your stuff so that you guys would be okay right now.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So, so that tour was with Aboth, Mayhem, and Idle Hands. Is it going to be rescheduled or is it just canceled now?
I'm not sure yet. It's a kind of a weird time. Like everything's on hold, so nobody knows how long it's gonna last. And rescheduling stuff can be tricky too, because like for us, we have the next year or two planned out. So, I mean, we already have stuff planned out through the end of the year. So if this tour is getting rescheduled, then it might land on top of something else we already have scheduled. So unless literally everything gets moved, then it's going to be kind of a shit show of things just stacking up on each other. So
Yeah.
I think the whole live music world right now is taking a hit because, you know, nothing's happening right now. But then there's going to be this all kinds of confusion of trying to get things rescheduled and what gets moved, what gets canceled. I don't know.
Right. Especially for bands like you that like constantly stay so busy year round and have like the next year of your life planned out before it happens.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to like the very beginning. In your life, like when you were a kid, how did you first get into metal?
Well, I grew up, I think the first band that I really liked was the Beatles. My dad got me into the Beatles. And I used to watch that movie Help, the Beatles movie, all the time when I was a little kid. And then I just got into like whatever was on the radio, like 90s, like alternative music. And then I got into punk I got into when I was like a teenager. When I was like 11 or so, I got into like skateboarding and punk, um, and found a lot of new music through there. And like skate videos. I think like from some skate videos was the first time I heard any like metal that wasn't like on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard like Slayer and Danzig and stuff like that.
Awesome.
A Zero skate video.
Cool.
But I was mostly into punk. Like when I was a like 12 years old or whatever. I was like in 7th grade in junior high. It was the early 2000s. Like this would have been 2000. And I liked punk, and the metal at the time was like new metal. Cause it was like Limp Bizkit, Korn, Static X. I didn't know like super underground metal. I wasn't aware of a lot of that. So at the time I was like, I don't like metal because I didn't like new metal. It's like, I like punk. I don't like metal. When you're a kid, like, and you're super impressionable, and also it's like, I feel like you have to, you're finding yourself and you have to kind of like choose one side. And I was like, I'm team punk. I'm not team metal.
Right. Especially back then when like those two crowds were so separate and
yeah,
they didn't really market to each other at all.
Yeah. So, I was into stuff like that. And then I have an older cousin who, he got me into a lot of cool stuff like skateboarding and punk, and through there, sprinkled in was some like 90s like hardcore, like Earth Crisis and Snapcase, and listening back, it's pretty like metallic hardcore, but at the time I didn't know. I was just like, oh, this is heavier than what I've ever heard. So I got into that. So I think that I got into metal through like punk and then hardcore, and then I realized the hardcore that I liked was pretty much just metal.
Like what bands?
Like I said, like Earth Crisis, Snapcase, Turmoil, and then from there I kind of went through the gateway, like entry level bands. I remember when the first Black Dahlia Murder record came out.
Hell yeah.
I was in high school, on Hollowed, and from there I started to like my transition, or like that was my gateway into more underground like death metal. It's like 2003 or whatever, and I'm friends with Trevor now, but it's funny because I used to read interviews that he would do like in magazines, or I would see what shirts he was wearing, and it would be like Morbid Angel, Dissection, At the Gates, and Carcass. So I started finding bands out through there. So that was kind of my entry point, and probably the first record that is more like in the territory of the stuff that I like now. First one that I heard, like as far as old school death metal and that sort of stuff, was probably At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul.
Awesome.
And that just kind of blew it wide open. And so it was more at that point, rather than finding current bands or like new bands, it was finding older bands that I liked. Records that came out when I was too young to know what was going on. And thankfully, due to the internet, I was able to, like dig really deep pretty easily, download music. There was a time when there was a lot of music blogs. You could download music, so you could follow a blog, and if there was a couple records on there that you'd liked, it was a pretty safe bet that some of the other ones that you hadn't heard of were good. So I would just download all of them.
I remember those days when you'd have to like Google Slaughter of the Soul blogspot or whatever, and then get a link that would have like a zip drive.
Yeah. So I dug deep in there, and I've just never stopped. Like I've never an unquenchable thirst for new music. So I try to keep up with what's new, but also there's always old stuff to find, whether it's like old demos, just you go through all the classics and then try to find the more deep cut records. And I'm always on the hunt every day. But yeah, that's how I got into metal. I would say a little bit later, I didn't go straight into metal, but I think everybody has their own route into it. Like I think a lot of people that are my age, I just turned 33 the other day. And a lot of people that are my age or like my peers, they liked new metal. So, when they were 12 or whatever, they went straight from whatever radio music into new metal and metal from there. I know that as far as fans of extreme music that are my age, like Slipknot was a big band for them. Like that was their gateway band. They like Slipknot, and then from there they got into death metal or whatever, but that wasn't my thing.
Yeah, you just like skip the entire new metal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like points of entry are so important, and it's weird how so many different places can end us up in the same spot. Like loving death metal, like just wanting to be more and more extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some people, everybody has their own way in. I think a lot of people will put up a front and be like, "Yeah, I've always been cool" or whatever. But seem to have from people that have a different way in. I think you have a different perspective on everything. So I like talking about how I got into music.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, Gatecreeper now seems like you have so many diverse fans that love different types of things, and you bring them all together. What do you think is it about Gatecreeper corners of heavy music and beyond?
You started cutting out a little bit, but
oh, really?
Can you repeat that?
God damn, Instagram Live, yeah. It does this whole
good
time. I said, it's interesting because Gatecreeper really seems to attract so many different fans from all corners of heavy music and from those different points of entry. And also fans of, music that's not even heavy music, like fans from hip hop or fans from pop or whatever it may be, like indie. What do you think it is about Gatecreeper that sort of brings people together like that?
I mean, some of it's intentional, some of it is not. I would love to be the gateway band for people to get into death metal. If it's someone that's like, I don't really like death metal, but I like Gatecreeper, or this, we're the first death metal band they hear. However it is that they come upon us, I think it's cool. Like, I think that's really important in music. Another thing that people will try to put a front on and say that that's a bad thing, but if we can be that gateway for somebody, then I'm more than happy to be that. I think the reason why maybe is a little bit, like I said before, everybody has their own little background from it, and how they got into metal, or at least your perspective on it and what you like about death metal. For example, I know that for Gatecreeper, the kind of the mission statement and our goal always has been to write like catchy songs. I think that you can be, when extreme music, you can write catchy songs. That doesn't mean that it's poppy. That doesn't mean that it's like necessarily melodic. It doesn't mean that it's like corny. I think that catchy, the word catchy might throw some people off or turn some people off. But I think it's important to have like hooks in death metal, at least for our band, because a lot of the classic records that are considered classics in death metal, like Deicide, Once Upon the Cross, or like the Cannibal Corpse, like the song Hammer Smash Face, like that's like written like a pop song basically. And I don't think people realize that, but that's like what people are drawn to, especially if you're just getting into more extreme music. Like for me, when I first started getting into death metal, like I said At the Gate, Slaughter of the Soul, like those songs are really catchy. Those songs have really memorable parts and riffs in it. And like the Swedish death metal stuff that I still love, and that was kind of my favorite going into death metal, is because it's a little bit more accessible and it's a little bit more memorable and catchy. I think it will it's reminiscent of music that you've heard growing up all throughout your life. So I mean, there's a lot of death metal that I like and I'm influenced by, that's super like atonal and just super dense. But that's not really the type of music that I want to write for Gatecreeper. So we joke about it, and it's kind of like an inside joke that's kind of blown up, but the stadium death metal thing is just, I don't think it's supposed to be taken literally. But that was our goal when we were doing our new record. It's like, we want to make a stadium death metal record, which means to us is like big songs. Like we wanted the record and the production to sound big, and to write memorable songs and to be interesting. And I think we did a pretty good job. And
I think most of us agree.
Yeah. So I think with the songwriting and maybe some of the different ways that we've like branded ourselves as a band, leans into having a wider audience. But again, that's something that I welcome. So anything that I can do to reach more people, then I'd like to do that. I'm not opposed. I'm not scared of that. I'm not like too cool to want to be this like super obscure underground band. I don't care about any of that. Like, I just want to play music. I want people to listen to it. I want to be able to tour and like not have to work a normal job anymore. So
totally. And the best way to do that is to be successful and reach the most people possible and pack your shows. And I love the term stadium death metal. Like, when you kind of coined that or whatever, when you were doing a bunch of interviews for the last record, I thought that was really an astute way of putting it, because there's no reason why metal shouldn't be in stadiums again. You know, it shouldn't just be like the bands from the 80s that are able to do that. We should have more bands these days that can get to that level and make that amount of money and don't have to work their day job when they get home and stuff like that. So bring it on, man. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like, I don't think death metal is ever going to be like a stadium thing. So that's why I said it shouldn't be taken literally.
Right.
But it's more like the idea of it. It's purposely absurd, you know, like, and I know that, which is kind of funny. Like you said, like when we were doing interviews and everything for the record, I was purposely putting that in there because I thought it was kind of funny, like just to put it out there.
And it's a memorable term, you know, whether you take it literally or not. You're not going to forget the term stadium death metal.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we can't aspire to that, even if it's unrealistic. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So, tell me about your first band you were ever in your life.
Oh shit. I've been playing in bands since I was like 12 years old. I was in 7th grade. I first learned how to play the guitar on an old acoustic guitar that my dad had. I learned how to play like Green Day songs, Blink-182 songs, and like this PX, like the punk that I was into at the time. So I learned how to play that sort of stuff. And then my friend that went to my school that I used to skate with started playing the guitar, and his brother had a drum set. So we started playing. So I actually played drums in the first band that I ever played in.
Cool.
And I bought a really shitty drum set, and I wasn't very good, and the drum set made it even more frustrating. So I moved on and I started playing the bass, and I played the bass in a band for a couple of years. And then when I was like 18, I played in kind of like a stoner metal band that I played guitar and did vocals in.
Cool. What was that band called?
It was called Slut Sister.
Nice.
and it actually shares members like with the band Takeover and Destroy,
Oh, cool.
which Nate used to play in, but they're they're still my friends. And basically after that band ended, or around the same time they overlapped, they had Takeover and Destroy. I didn't play in bands for a couple years after that. I had some personal issues I had to deal with, but once I got my shit together, I started Gatecreeper.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I still play guitar. Me and Eric will write the guitar parts for Gatecreeper, or write our own songs for it. And I used to play more guitar like on the records, but I still am involved with a lot of like the guitar with Gatecreeper, even though I don't play it live. And I didn't play any guitar on the last record, I don't think. But everything before that, I played at least some guitar on it.
Do you find that you're able to be like a more dynamic frontman without having a guitar in your hands?
Yeah. Like I said, I did that in a band before, doing both, and I didn't like it. And actually, when we started Gatecreeper, I wasn't even supposed to do vocals. I was just gonna play guitar, and then we were gonna have somebody else sing for us.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started the band, it was me, Eric, a guitar player, the Dark Cowboy, and our drummer Matt, and it was just the three of us. And me and Eric were both playing guitar. And there was this dude that was from Tucson that was going to sing for us, but then it didn't work out. Like, we never were able to meet up, and we scheduled time to record what would be our first EP. We had a couple songs written, so we were just like, let's record this. And by the time, probably a couple weeks before we went into the studio, I was just like, all right, I'll do vocals on it. So we recorded it, and it was just the three of us. It wasn't even a full band. We hadn't played a show yet or anything. So that was the first time that I'd recorded vocals in a long time, and just kind of been winging it ever since.
Doesn't sound like you're winging it. I mean, your death metal vocals are fucking awesome.
Thank you.
How did you learn how to growl like that?
I don't know. I really don't know what I'm doing, honestly. I think that my technique is really bad. Like, it's really bad for me physically. Like, I'll lose my voice really easily. It shreds my throat. I think if somebody like whatever, like that teacher, the Zen of Screaming, whatever, they would be really horrified at my technique. And it's something that I've had to learn. Like, I've had to just teach myself and learn as I go on. I think I've gotten a lot better at it. Like, when I listen to our last record, I'm proud of it. But when I listen to our first record, I'm like, I kind of sucked. And I think that's just from like touring and just experience. Touring for sure definitely helps figure out, because you have to do it every night for 30 days in a row. You kind of have to figure out, all right, this is how I'm not going to destroy myself every night.
Right. Do you have any like rituals that you utilize to like keep your vocals from getting thrashed, or do you just kind of wing it?
Not really. I mean, I kind of know the cycle of it now. Say we start a tour, probably around like the fourth or fifth show, my voice kind of gets really shot. My voice isn't totally lost, but it's definitely not fully functional. And then I have to get through that for a show or two, and then after I get over that hump, I'm pretty good to go. And it's like my throat is calloused almost. So I just have to get through that every time. I also will get some sort of like sore throat, almost kind of like a sinus infection sort of thing, I think, just because my voice is torn up.
Your body's like trying to fight off whatever you're doing to it.
Yeah, but I know how it is now. Like, it's pretty much the same kind of time frame every tour, so I know what to expect. I don't know. I everything that I do, whether it's like guitar or art or any of that stuff, it's like self-taught, and I just kind of figure it out myself by watching other people or listening to other people and even imitating other people. That's just how I've always learned how to do things. So I just kind of figured out my own way how to do it, and I don't know.
Of all the death metal frontmen out there, what one do you think you're trying to emulate the most?
Probably John Tardy from Obituary, Matt Karkey from Dismember. I don't know. Those are the top two ones, but I like to mix in like a little bit of other, maybe some Jamie Josta in there once in a while, which may surprise people.
Seems like there's a little bit of
Celtic
Frost in there sometimes too.
Yeah. Definitely all the oohs are directly influenced by that.
Can you do one for us?
No. This isn't the time, nor the place.
It sounds like the birds behind you are gonna like dive bomb you.
Are they loud?
Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, it's awesome,
it kind of looks like I'm at like a very tropical place, huh?
But you're in Tucson right now?
In Tempe.
Oh, okay.
Which is Phoenix. Like some of us from Gatecreeper are in Phoenix and some are in Tucson. They're about an hour and a half apart.
Mm-hmm. So normally when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, how often do you guys get together to practice?
Not very often, honestly.
That's cool.
It depends. I mean, the way that we write is not the traditional. Like we all get in the room together and like jam it out. It's usually me or Eric on our own, writing music, and then we'll get together and put our ideas together. So really, we're only getting together and practicing if we have a show or we're about to tour. Like the weeks leading up to it, we'll get together and practice. But the guys from Tucson have to come up to Phoenix for that. So, and everybody has like normal jobs and shit. So it's not the easiest thing to do. It's not just like, hey, let's meet up today or whatever. It's kind of has to be planned out. But I think everybody does a good job of practicing on their own. Everybody has it pretty dialed in. So when we do meet up and we practice, it comes together real quick.
And then you guys go on the road for like 2 months at a time. So
yeah, and then we don't want to see each other. We don't want to see each other for a couple months. So
yeah. So speaking of Arizona, so both of your records have like nods to the desert in the title. You have Sonoran Deprivation and Deserted. How do you feel like living in Arizona inspires you in your music?
I think that being from Arizona, I mean, like me, Eric, Matt, and Sean, I believe we're all Arizona natives. I think we're all born and raised in Arizona. And I don't know, I've gotten that question answered. I mean, asked a couple times now. I think it's a good question, and it's not something I really thought about. Yes, we do definitely have like an Arizona like desert theme because I think that that's cool. I think it's unique. Like there's not any other death metal bands or a whole lot of metal bands in general that are like, we're from Arizona, we're proud of it. We've had metal bands from here, death metal bands, but we just wanted to rep it super hard just because I think that it sets us apart a little bit. It's unique. But growing up in Arizona, I can say that, at least for me, it's an extreme climate. It gets really hot during the summer. It can be like 120 degrees or something. So when it's hot outside, you can go out and do stuff, but you're kind of like how we are right now. You're just stuck indoors. When you're a kid, you got to figure out how to entertain yourself, whether it's video games or whatever it is. So I guess a lot of people can relate to it now, but you're stuck inside where there's nice air conditioning. And if you're creative, you can entertain yourself by doing creative stuff. I think that if you know about the history of like black metal and stuff like that, I think that there's some parallels where they're an extreme, Norway or Scandinavian countries, they're also an extreme climate on the other side of the spectrum. So that they say the same stuff, the same thing, like, oh, it's blizzarding outside, we have to stay inside. So I don't know. I think that's how it's influenced us, and the desert's super, super interesting. I think Eric is a lot more knowledgeable about that stuff. He knows all about all the plants and like the more the natural wildlife. So I think it's a pretty unique setting. So that's why we've kind of leaned into the Arizona or desert theme.
Mm-hmm. I love reading all his posts on social media about like conservation and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
really, really interesting. What types of themes do you usually write about in your lyrics?
It really depends. Some of it's personal. It used to be like when we first started, I used a lot of it to be like really personal. Not detailed enough, but at least for me, I think I was coming out of like a really dark time. I talked a lot about like drugs and stuff that I was going through because I think it was, pretty dark. Just as dark as any sort of like murder fantasy that you could talk about, But as time goes on, I try to mix it up. I try not to stick on two things. Honestly, this might sound pretty crazy, but like I don't really care about lyrics. Like when I listen to a band and there's a band I really like, I'm not like looking through the lyrics and trying
Not
to
like Googling the lyrics.
Which is crazy to say because I'm the singer of the band.
Right.
But it's not to say that I don't put time and effort into it, and I don't think that lyrics are important. But to me, that's the last part that goes into the music. Like since I'm involved with writing the riffs and everything like that. I think that's the most important part is the riffs of the songs, and I think that the lyrics or vocal phrasing is even more important to me than the lyrics, especially in death metal where you can't really understand the lyrics a lot of the time. Right. It can sound really boring no matter what you say. So it's really more how you say it for me. But the lyrical themes range anywhere from like my own personal feelings on certain things. I don't really write anything political, but I have written the more like fantasy, at least fictional sort of situations. I'm also not a fantasy guy. Like sometimes I'll find like a news story or Eric will be like, hey, you should check this out and write about it. Eric's helped me write some lyrics before.
That's awesome.
And I try not to stick to one thing. If you listen to our last record, the lyrics are all over the place, whether it's personal stuff, fictional stuff, semi-based on actual events. Yeah. I don't know. The last Deserted is the first time that I've ever printed our lyrics in a record because, like I said, I don't really care about the lyrics as far as some of my favorite records. I don't know what the lyrics are. I don't care. But I had it after our first record, and I didn't put the lyrics in it. People were always asking me, like, hey, can you send me the lyrics? Like, where can I find the lyrics? I kind of realized that just because that's not important to me doesn't mean that a lot of people, it's not important to them. And if that's how people relate to music, I realize that I can't like alienate those sort of people. If they want to know the lyrics and if that's going to help them connect with music, then I gotta give that to them, whether it's my personal preference or not. So I printed them in the last record.
That's really cool. I love that it's like an interactive experience.
Yeah.
It looks like we got a bunch of questions coming in. Let me see what we got here.
Can I see them or just you?
Do you have like a little question mark thing at the bottom?
Nah.
I guess it's just me. Lord Jimmy Cantu says, can you please add Absence of Light to the set list on the next US tour?
Probably not.
I also saw him pop in with a comment asking for your dog. Can you show us your dog?
Yeah, let me go get him.
Okay. How are you guys doing? You can pop in with comments anytime you want. Hi, Cody. Yay!
Yeah, this is Bodie.
Hi, Bodie. Aw. How long have you had Bodie?
Like 6 years.
Bodie's really cute. All right, he will be with us for the remainder of the
He'll be
question
chilling.
section. Oops.
Well, okay, I'm seeing the questions now.
Oh, weird. Okay. So I guess if I see, this is all a learning experience. We're learning together. Um, some of these are pretty funny.
Do I have any haters?
No.
Rise.
Will Chase keep the beard?
Good question. I don't know. I
I
haven't
feel
grown
like
a
this
beard.
is very different from your iconic mustache.
I know. It's my quarantine beard. I haven't grown a beard in probably 10 years. I don't know. Remains to be seen. We'll see.
I guess we'll have to see your rescheduled tour dates and find out.
Yeah.
Grayson Kelly wants to know your graphic design or career story. Graphic
All
design
right.
career story, not or.
I started, I always have been like visually artistic and stuff. I think that I'm a little bit too impatient, or some might say like ADD about stuff. So I didn't, it's hard to keep my focus on stuff like that. But I used to draw a little bit. I don't, in the stuff that I do now, I don't do a whole lot of drawing. I'm not an illustrator. And I started using like Photoshop or some Photoshop like thing when I was probably in junior high, like the early 2000s. I learned how to do HTML, and I like would make websites, like super basic websites for my bands that I was in junior high or whatever. So I kind of started doing a little bit of graphic design that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then I didn't do it for a long time, and until actually we started doing Gatecreeper. We needed like merch designs or layouts or stuff like that. I knew the specific type of stuff that I wanted. So initially I had other people do it that I knew that did that style, like just like the old school death metal demo, like Xerox, zine looking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that stuff, and that was the look that I wanted for Gatecreeper. It's like an homage to all this, the things that we're influenced by. And so I started commissioning other people to do it. And then, like I said earlier, I learned how to do things just by like figuring it out myself. So I was just like, I'm gonna learn how to do this myself, so I can just crank it out on my own. I don't have to depend on anybody else. And I have a friend named Dean, and he did a tape layout for Gatecreeper. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. How did you do this? I was experimenting a little bit before, and he gave me like a full rundown, like basically that I still use today. I'd have to go to the copy store to use their Xerox machines. And then eventually I bought my own Xerox machine, which is like, a huge old dated printing machine. But and from there, I started doing, I booked shows and stuff at home. So I would make flyers for my own shows, and then people would ask me to make flyers for them, or other bands would start asking me to do t-shirt designs or whatever it is for them. I've done some like record layouts. I have a very specific style, and again, I'm not an illustrator. A lot of it's kind of like collage stuff. I'll like take little things from other mediums and put it together. So it's a very specific style. It's not unique by any means. So it's not like a career, I guess. It has a very narrow audience for it, and client base. And honestly, I haven't really had time to do any of that recently. So it's fun. I like to do it when I can. Like if I book a show, I still try to make the flyer. But as far as cranking stuff like out like that, I don't really have time to, or I don't really have time to focus on like that sort of stuff. Maybe I will again someday, but maybe I think that maybe I helped run that sort of look to the ground maybe a little bit, like burn it out, like the Xerox sort of look, because there is a lot of people that I'm friends with, a lot of people do that style really well. So I'm like, cool, you guys could do it. I'll pay you to do it for me now because I don't have time to do it. And maybe and been trying to do something a little bit different, because after a while everything starts looking the same and you got to mix it up a little bit.
Right. I'm seeing in the comments that Eric is here. So hi, Eric. And everybody's all excited. The Dark Cowboy. Oh man, there's so many questions. Okay. I'm going to try to pick like 2 or 3. Well, Eric wants to know why Chase got to be so sexy. So you're going to have to explain that to Eric.
I'll plead the fifth.
Nicholas Samara wants to know, are you working on new material right now?
Yeah. I mean, we're always working on stuff. I think Eric's writing more than me always. But since we've been locked down, I've been working on new stuff. I was kind of burnt out after we did Deserted. I was burnt out, and I was like, all right, I don't want to touch the guitar for a while. I don't even want to look at a guitar. Just because it gets like when we do a record, I get super like hyper focused and paying attention to every little detail, and you're doing every layer, like the drums and bass, guitar, and like it burns you out. And I feel like I put a lot into it, so I kind of felt burnt out for a little bit, and I wasn't really stoked on the idea of like writing new music or having to write another record. But recent times we've had some good ideas, and it's got me, fire lit in me again to write new stuff, and maybe stuff that's a little bit different than what we normally do, which excites me. So yeah, we've been working on new stuff.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. Let's see. Tito Martin Z PhD wants to know, do you think Gatecreeper put some punk to the death metal scene?
Put some punk?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like punk. I like a lot of punk. Like I said, that's what I liked before I even liked metal. I'm not sure how much of it compared to other bands is put into our music, but I mean, it's definitely an influence. I mean, I think the style or the mode that we're most known for is very mid-tempo, but we do have some of those parts that are like faster, D-beat sort of parts. But yeah, punk will always be in the mix.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite band of all time?
Probably Black Sabbath.
Good answer. When I talked to Nate on Tuesday, we spent a good chunk of time talking about Black Sabbath. What's your favorite Black Sabbath album? I feel like that has to be.
It changes. The first Black Sabbath that I heard was like it's kind of like a greatest hits, or like a collection. We sold our souls for rock and roll. Mm-hmm. It's kind of my intro to it, and for a long time, Master Reality was my favorite. At the time I was really into like the stoner metal, like sludge sort of stuff. And I think that's kind of like the blueprint for that, Master Reality. But it's changed. I think Sabotage is probably the one that I'll throw on the most now. But it's always changed, you know, like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath's really good. Volume 4 probably bounces around between those couple. I don't get super into like the Dio era, Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, but I think it's good. But I definitely stick to like the Ozzy era Black Sabbath stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, and it's weird because I don't. It's hard. Asking what your favorite band of all time is a pretty overwhelming question.
Totally.
Because there's so many different bands that I'm keeping track of, and probably bands that I listen to on a very regular basis. But to say something of all time, I think that's always going to have to go to Black Sabbath, just because you can't go wrong.
Right.
So
none of us would be here if it weren't for Black Sabbath.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for that very stock answer, but that's what I'm going to stick with.
I mean, I don't think it sounds stock. I think it sounds like completely understandable and giving reverence to the thing that we should all be thinking about all the time.
Yes.
If they hadn't have done what they did in 1970, then we wouldn't have any of this. So
it's very true.
Any news on that Red Bull sponsorship you've been trying to get for a long time?
They've been sending me free Red Bulls, so
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's a sponsorship, like I don't get paid for it, but I get free
Right.
Red Bulls. So
if it makes you save money on Red Bull, then it seems like a
Yeah.
pretty good sponsorship to me.
Yeah, I mean they've been giving me, or they've been giving us more than I could possibly drink. So sure, it's just a drop in the bucket for them, but I feel like it's about time. You know, I've been repping Red Bull for years.
And you guys are working with Liquid Death right now too, the water, the canned water. Oh, there we go, product placement. They're so interesting to me because it's just water. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, like that marketing has got to be some of the most hilarious, genius marketing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. It's definitely if you're interested in like marketing or branding or whatever, I think it's a very, very cool study on that of marketing something like water that you can get out of the sink, but how can you package that and brand it and promote it to so people will buy it? I think it's super interesting. I think it's cool. Yeah. They just came out with this sparkling water, which I'm a big fan of. So
rad.
That's what I've been drinking. It's not intentionally a product placement. I was literally just drinking this at the time. So
yeah, and I saw somebody comment that the Red Bull was a sponsorship thing, and I was purely just curious.
Yeah.
The pit is not affiliated with Red Bull at all. Maybe we should be, but it's Red Bull. If you're listening, we would love to take your money.
Yes, please.
Let's see. Do I have anything else for you before we go to some more fan questions? We have about 10 minutes before it kicks us off. So, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you while you're on stage?
On stage?
Mm-hmm. Or on tour, if you want to broaden it.
Well, on stage, I think it was on the Contamination tour where it was like Dying Fetus, Incantation, Us, and Genocide Pact. I kind of got like groped on stage. It was pretty crazy. There's this girl on the stage, in the front of the stage, and she was flashing us, which is like, like what people imagine like at a rock show or something, like some super
right.
outdated concept. And we were kind of all looking at each other like, is this really happening? And then I was like on stage and I was like singing and I felt like someone like grabbing my leg, and she was like feeling my legs all the way, certainly past my knees. I thought that was kind of weird. I was kind of like, it was a very weird, we were all just looking at each other, and I was like kind of looking at everyone else in the band and like looking at people in the front, because we were in Philly. This show was at Philly. So it was like all the Relapse people were there. Like I had a bunch of friends there, and I was kind of looking at people like, are you seeing this happening? Like, but I even asked people after the show, and they were like, they didn't even see it happen. So that's definitely the weirdest thing that's ever happened when we played.
Yeah, it's funny, like that's like a stereotype of things that happen in like rock and roll in like the 70s and 80s, but That's pretty rare for that type of thing to go on, and like especially death metal now.
Yeah. And also at the time I was like, oh wow, I'm special. Like this girl. But then I watched all the other bands and she was doing the same thing to all the other bands. I was like, oh, I don't feel special anymore.
Well, glad she's getting what she wanted. As
Yeah.
long as it didn't make you uncomfortable.
I
All
mean, it
right.
kind of did, but whatever.
Oh, really? Well, let's see. Built to Shred wants to know, what's your favorite modern band?
Favorite modern band?
Yeah.
Probably Hooded Menace is probably my favorite modern
Nice.
current metal, death metal band. I'm not sure if they're super active at the moment, but the record that they put out like a year or two ago is really good. And all the records are really good. The newer one is a little bit different. They have a different singer. But yeah, it's definitely my favorite modern or current death metal band.
Hell yeah. We have time for one more, I think. So I'm going to try to make it really good. What have you guys got for us? Trinert, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, wants to know if there's a story behind the little ugly mane merch design you did.
There's a story behind the merch design.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I was a fan of the Ugly Mane. And then I met him, and then we became friends, and we actually played some shows together. And he asked me to do a shirt design for him, and I said yes. That's the story.
I remember seeing that tour poster, or not tour poster, but the show poster when you guys played. I want to say it was Club Congress in Tucson.
Yeah, we did two shows. We did two Arizona shows.
Yeah, I remember thinking that was really cool.
Yeah.
I love that so many metal bands are playing with hip hop bands or hip hop artists right now.
Yeah, I think it's cool too. I mean, I like hip hop. I like rap. The Ugly Mane thing was like, I was a fan. We became friends. So he had never played in Arizona before, so I was like, come out. We'll do two shows. We played in Phoenix and in Tucson. They were really cool shows. We've played some other rappers. I think it's really cool to play to new, both sides get to play to new people. A rapper gets to play to metal people. In our case, a metal band gets to play to like rap fans or whatever. I think that there's certainly a crossover, an overlap of the two fan bases these days. I think it's cool. I think it's great to play shows together. However, I don't think that the actual music itself should really be combined. Like I don't think that rap metal is cool. So I think everything else, whether it's art, shows, or whatever, should be combined. But I think that the music should probably stay separate. That's just my opinion.
Do you feel like people went away from that show being like the rap fans were now fans of metal and might check it out, or vice versa?
I hope so. Either way, I think it's cool. Given an artist to play to a new crowd is always going to be something that's cool in my book. And like I said before, if someone goes to the rap show and they see us play, and we're the first metal band or we're the first death metal band that they like, and we can be a gateway for them to go dig deep like I did when I was younger. And if Gatecreeper is the first death metal band that someone hears, and then they can dig deep and find out what our influences are, because that's what I did with other bands, then I think that's cool. I'll let them know my very specific top 10 list of Swedish death metal demos if they want. So.
Hell yeah. So before we go, what's your favorite current hip hop artist that people should check out?
Current. I don't even know. Most of the hip hop stuff that I like is older, like Southern.
Nice.
Other shit like 3-6 Mafia or like other Memphis stuff. But I think that as far as current or more modern, that I mean, Ugly Mane, Mr. Thug Isolation, you can't. It's a classic. It's a modern classic.
Oh yeah, I like it too. Well, how can people find Gatecreeper, and how can people best support you right now during the quarantine time?
I mean, you can find us if you want to listen to our music or watch our videos or whatever. You can find it anywhere. All the very accessible: Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, YouTube, all that stuff. Right now, if you want to support us, and it's going to go straight to us, is to buy some merch on our Big Cartel. So there's a link in my profile. There's a link on the Gatecreeper Instagram. It's just gatecreeper.bigcartel.com.
Cool.
And yeah, we're selling the merch that we had printed to go on tour, and it's sitting in my garage right now. So we've already sold a bunch of it, which is awesome. But if you want to pick up a shirt, that is the best way to directly help us out at this time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So gatecreeper.bigcartel.com.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Everyone go buy a shirt. Chase, thank you so much. It was really fun talking to you.
Yeah, of course.
And have a good day.
Thanks
I hope those birds don't eat you.
I hope not.